Thank you for coming. I know it's just 4 o'clock. We're going to give it 1 or 2 more minutes because we've got expecting a few more attendees. Thank you for your patience. All right. Thank you everyone for your patience. I think we're about ready to get started. So I'm going to pass this over to our Assistant Director of Planning Innovation, Alan Zelinka, to welcome you.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate you spending a little time with us this afternoon to talk about how the Department of Energy can help wildfire survivors make their buildings more energy efficient. We hope that you'll be willing to share your thoughts with us so we can design a better program that will work well for the survivors. And online with me are several people I wanted to point out from the Department of Energy. Michael Friels is the program manager. Wave, Michael. Christy Split, who's off camera, is our government relations person, and Andy Cameron heads up our energy efficiency and conservation team. And we've got several other people online as well to take notes and answer questions that we have. Also on board, I think I saw him, Andy Bolton. Andy Bolton, wave Andy, our double Andys. He's an analyst with the Building Codes Division, BCD, and he'll share a little bit about their agency's efforts on a wildfire hardening program. I also wanted to recognize a member of the Oregon legislature who's joined us. I'm also a city councilor in Eugene, and I've known Senator Floyd Prozonsky for a long time. And I just have admired his many years of service to our community. So we'll have a chance to hear from Senator Prozonsky in a few minutes. We're hoping this to be a bit of an interactive meeting with lots of questions and feedback from you, the attendees. Michael will walk through how we'll do that shortly. And then finally, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this meeting is being recorded. Next slide. So before we jump into the meeting, I just want to take a minute and let you know about the Oregon Department of Energy. What you see on the screen is our vision, our mission statement, and how we achieve that mission. At ODO, we help Oregonians make informed decisions and maintain a resilient and affordable energy system. That's our job. We advance solutions to shape an equitable, clean energy transition. We protect the environment and public health and responsibly balance energy needs and impacts for current and future generations. So providing support for wildfire survivors to rebuild in a way that saves energy and money will contribute towards a safe, equitable, clean, and sustainable energy future. So it's our hope that with this program, we can help make your life a little easier, make their lives a little easier for the survivors in terms of energy efficiency anyway. I'm glad the Oregon Department of Energy can play a small role in this wildfire recovery program, large program. I know I'll now turn it back over to Michael, and he'll go over the agenda for today's meeting and how you can engage in the conversation. Michael?
Thank you, Alan. All right, so our meeting agenda for today. So we'll start with logistics and just kind of go over the WebEx platform. I want to make sure everybody's comfortable with what we're using today. And certainly we appreciate everyone's patience. We know using all these digital platforms is going to be challenges along the way, but we appreciate everyone's patience and we'll get through it together. After we go through logistics, we'll talk about our future meetings. So this is one of a series of community outreach meetings we're doing to listen to everyone and get feedback. And we'll talk about that process. We'll talk about through legislation. Christy will walk us through the legislation that's brought us here. And we'll talk about some of our ideas and how we're going to design an energy efficient rebuilding program. And as Alan pointed out, we've got Andy Bolton from DCBS to talk us through their wildfire hardening program, which is exciting. We're going to be kind of sister programs, also offering it at the same time. And at the end, we should leave quite a bit of time to have an open forum. We've got some questions for everybody. We're excited to hear from all the different participants we have here today, and we're here to listen. So using the WebEx platform, so I know we've got people on the phone who can certainly call in, and we are using this as an event where everyone's muted to start. If you do have something you want to bring up, you have a question or a comment as we're going along the way, please raise your hand. So if you look on the screen, you can see over to your right here how to actually push the button and raise your hand. And we'll try to watch for that as much as we can and call on you and unmute you. So then you can provide your feedback or ask your question along the way. Also, want to note that we have a chat or Q&A function. So if you have a question to the group, please put it within that. Please send it to all the participants so we all see it. And we will try to address that as well as if you want to raise your hand and voice it. So either way works for us. Okay. Oh, and if you're calling from the phone, you can push, I believe it's *3, and that will raise your hand and we can unmute you and then you can speak from your phone. And Christy, do you have something to add?
I do. I don't think Michael knows it yet, but we have a glitch in our matrix today, and we have found out that the people that are attendees are seeing chat and we're seeing Q&A on our end, and we can't see the chat. So we've sent one of our staffers to be an attendee to monitor the chat, and she'll go ahead and feed us any questions that come in that way. So we have no idea how this is happening. So we don't want to try to fix it during it. So we'll just deal with it as we go. And so go ahead and chat away if you would like. And we're getting that reported to us in a different way, and I'll speak up for you. Or you can just raise your hand and then we can unmute you and you can ask questions that way too, as was already mentioned. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Christy. As I mentioned, please be patient with this process. So, okay, so this is one of a series of meetings. We met with Oregon Coast yesterday, and now we're talking to the Lane County, McKenzie River area, and we'll have subsequent meetings. We're going to focus on the Santa Marion County area and Southern Oregon as well. If you know of other people within your area that would be interested in participating in this meeting, we're just focusing on those particular areas, but please have them join other ones. The information is going to be similar. We're going to be listening to people, their feedback, so please have them join the other meetings. And all these will lead to us having a final rulemaking meeting where we'll present, here's what we've heard from our communities. This is kind of our program design based on what we've heard. So here are some draft rules, and we'll try to present at the end what's kind of the results of all these meetings and making sure we hear from everybody. And that's another opportunity for you to provide feedback. So overall, we want to convey along this process, there's multiple points where you can provide feedback. We actually also have a public comment portal on our website that we would love to have people come onto that's offered in a variety of different languages. And you can go on there, there's questions to answer, or you could upload a document, or you could just go in there and write some feedback or leave some questions for us. Many different ways to provide feedback, and we're here to listen. Okay, so unfortunately, one of the reasons why we're here today is in 2020, there were a series of fires across the state, leading to over 1 million acres of damage and over 5,000 structures destroyed. It's a very unfortunate situation, but the legislature saw fit to help with recovery, and so we're leading that work today. So we actually have Senator Przansky, as Alan pointed out here, and I would really appreciate, would you be able to share with us what you'd like to see from the agency in recovery and your thoughts?
Thank you, Michael. Michael, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And for all those that are joined us from upriver, thank you very, very much for your time and taking part in this presentation. The goal for me is to make certain that we get as much information as we can to constituents and those who live in these affected areas from the wildfires in 2020. It's very important what I'm hearing, and I can only just say this is across the board. Some of this will not be directly, let's say, for the Department of Energy, but these are things I think that need to be put out on the table so we don't lose face of some of the problems and barriers that individuals have shared with me. The permitting at the county level is still an issue for many individuals. It may be as simple as them not knowing how to get in and actually get the assistance they need. Others have stated it taking much longer than they anticipated. Of course, the supplies that are necessary to rebuild is a very large challenge now as to the individuals being able to, one, get the supplies, the cost of those supplies because of the demand is so high and the supply is so short. Contractors have also been an issue as to actually finding individuals that have the flexibility and the time to actually do work, because they are pretty maxed out, and not all contractors are willing to make the let's say the commitment to working upriver, and that also causes for some constituents to be concerned about who they can turn to. What are the ways that they can ensure that individuals are competent in their field to actually help them and assist them in rebuilding. The limitations and the size, I do hear questions about that, and I think that that's another area that we need to have some direction. One of the most important issues that is not really per se the Department of Energy, but is the broadband connection. Many families are very concerned as to being able to relocate back to their community or their portions upriver and still have the ability to have the connections that are necessary for them in a professional sense, for conducting business, being able to do commerce, as well as for the kids being able to have access for school. And that is one of the areas that we have been working on a lot. I think the important parts of that I think that for the Department of Energy is how you will be able to assist these families and individuals to actually reestablish their presence in the valley. And also, as you want to do, ensure that when they're rebuilding, hopefully that they have the ability and knowledge of how they can actually rebuild with maybe a higher standard for energy efficiency that's going to pay off dividends to them in the long run as to their overall cost for maintaining their house, their property, and such. And so I think those are really important perspectives I hope that the department will look at. I do know that there's been some discussion about potentially providing for some type of maybe low interest loans that could in fact help individuals that meet some type of means test to be able to make some of these shifts and get into a more efficient building materials that would in fact give them these benefits that I've already mentioned. So that's a snapshot, nutshell. I do want to say, because I'm not sure how much more I'll be able to say during this presentation, but for all those who do live upriver and the McKenzie Valley River area, please do not hesitate to contact me through my office with any questions and assistance. I know that the Department of Energy will be making themselves available to you as well, but not everything that you may have issues with or needs may not fit within their jurisdiction. And so please do not hesitate to contact myself. My staff person, Kevin Moore, has been helping a number of individuals. We'd love to help you if you need that help or just need some explanation as to exactly how things are evolving at the state level for additional assistance. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Senator Przansky. Thank you for making all those wonderful points. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Christy, will you take us through legislation?
I will, and thanks also to Senator Przansky from me. So Senator Przansky, other legislators, other elected officials like Commissioner Bach, who's on the call today, thanks so much for joining us as well. They got together ahead of the legislative session, recognizing that it was a time where policy could pass that could help Oregonians rebuild after these historic fires. And so I want to thank the senator and other elected officials and everyone on the call who worked to make this legislation happen. House Bill 2289 was a bill that was essentially designed to make it easier or streamline the process for people to rebuild in their communities so that these communities can be vibrant once again and places where people live and rebuild, not just for the individuals, but for the communities as a whole, right? So that bill passed, and as part of that bill, just a little bit of context, Oregon has a building code that includes a lot of energy efficiency measures. So when a new home is built, it's required now to have more stringent or a more efficient building. And so when older homes burned down, for example, that were less efficient, one of the concerns that some people had was that rebuilding would be more expensive to meet the current code because the code had changed since many of these houses had been built. And so House Bill 2289 said that you could rebuild to the code that was in place in 2008. And when those conversations were happening in the legislature, there was an idea that was formed that was, hey, we don't want to necessarily have less efficient homes, right? We know we're facing a climate change future. And so the idea was, if we were to offer an incentive to help people to build to code, then maybe more people would build to code instead of building less efficient homes if they're rebuilding. And so that idea was hatched, and we heard a little bit about it during the legislative session. And House Bill 5006 is what's called the Christmas tree bill. It's a bill that comes at the end of each session and includes a whole lot of different funding for a whole lot of different things. And in that bill, sure enough, there it was, $10 million to support people who lost structures, homes or commercial structures, to rebuild to code or rebuild for more efficiency. It was actually kind of silent on the code issue. It just said, hey, Oregon Department of Energy, set up a program so that people can rebuild with energy efficiency in mind. So we've been working on that, and I'll let Michael and Andy, who've been the ones really sort of in the weeds, as we say, at the Department of Energy, in putting this together. One thing I'll note is I see that we have a question in the Q&A, and after we talk a little bit about the program, we're going to do a lot of question and answers, and I'll make sure that the first question that we discuss is the one that I see here in the Q&A, and I think it was from Crystal. So we'll get to that when we get to the Q&A part. And I'll hand it over to Michael and I think Andy first. Thanks.
Yep, go ahead, Andy.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Christy. So I'll talk a little bit about the working program design. Our focus is on wildfire recovery, meeting code, driving economic recovery, and really incentivizing energy efficiency. Our program budgets should roughly follow the percent of structures that were destroyed. And it's worth noting here that single family and manufactured homes are about 94% of the total structures lost, with commercial and multifamily being about 6%. And we understand that building types have varying needs. For example, single family and manufactured homes, they require different considerations from each other and different considerations from small and large commercial and multifamily buildings. We want to offer a simple and streamlined delivery of this program using existing systems, and we want to meet the needs of survivors, stakeholders in all the local jurisdictions where these fires happened. Our goal is to create and maintain alignment with state and community stakeholders as much as possible. And you'll hear from the Building Codes Division here in a little bit, and we're really working in lockstep with them. Equity is going to be a major driver in program design and implementation. And as we're doing here today, the Oregon Department of Energy is going to make the most use of the public process as we can to inform our decisions. Next slide, please. So ODO's staff has done quite a bit of research on the structures lost and the rebuilding rates as we see them today. And at its core, this program is here to support the nearly 4,500 structures that are being rebuilt, with a focus on building energy efficient communities and offering long-term affordability. While the total number of structures exceeds 5,000, we're really focusing on the residential and commercial buildings. We realized there were outbuildings, bridges, transmission towers, and other structures lost, but our focus again is residential and commercial. This program is currently funded through the end of the biennium, June 30th, 2023. And to date, we see about 25% of the structures either rebuilt or in the process of local jurisdiction permitting. We've examined some comparable wildfire rebuilding efforts in California and read through some academic studies of those efforts. And we estimate about 40% of the structures will be either rebuilt or in the construction process by the time the current funding sunsets. And back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Andy. So as Christy was pointing out, with the legislation, that when people rebuild, they can rebuild to what the code was in effect on the commercial and residential side. The code in effect in January of 2008. So there's a significant amount of energy efficiency gained by just getting people to build to the 2021 codes. We've got great codes within our state, some of the best in the nation. They're very energy efficient. And so there's significant savings. If you just look at single family homes, a home that was built to what was the code in effect in 2008 to 2021, there's about a 30 to 35% energy efficiency increase in just getting them to build to the current code. And that's significant long-term savings over the life of that home and makes homes much more affordable. So we certainly want to figure out a way that we can incentivize people to make sure they are building at least to our current code. And we certainly recognize market practices have changed, lighting is better, many of the appliances have improved, so there's a lot of efficiency gains just in our current equipment. But even building with using more better lighting or more efficient appliances, if we can get people to build to that 2021 code, there is still significant energy efficiency gains. And we look at the life of many of these homes were built way before 2008. There's a lot of energy efficiency gains, and we hope people will see that in their energy bills and take advantage of that. So that is how we're thinking about kind of that code level support. How can we get people incentives and have the ability to take advantage of that? One challenge with that code level is manufactured homes. We lost a lot of manufactured homes in the 2020 fires. But manufactured homes are actually, their code is at a federal level by HUD. And so we actually can't influence their code. So we're taking a look at the opportunity to offer incentives at kind of an above code or a little bit more energy efficient option. There's Energy Star or NEEM standard homes that are more energy efficient, manufactured homes, if people are buying a new home. But we do realize what we've heard from the manufactured home community is that some people can't afford a new home and are taking a look at purchasing either previously owned manufactured homes or can't even afford a new home. And so are taking a look at what other options are available. With that in mind, we've also considered, can we offer a heat pump replacement program? And so with a lot of manufactured homes, they have electric zonal or electric forced air furnaces that aren't very efficient. And so we're looking at, can we offset the majority, if not all the costs with working with utilities of replacing the electric forced air furnaces with heat pumps or adding a ductless heat pump to those manufactured homes? Are there opportunities there? So we certainly want to try to make those manufactured homes more comfortable, more energy efficient, and lower their energy bills over the life of that home. So we're looking at a variety of different opportunities. Also within the manufactured home space, we've heard that financing can be a challenge in getting that new manufactured home. So can we offer incentives early on in the process? And a lot of these incentive programs, you don't get incentives until you're constructed, the total construction is done. With manufactured homes, is there an ability to offer those incentives early on when people are trying to get financing, when they're trying to purchase a more energy efficient home? And so that's something we've taken a look at, and we certainly welcome feedback on. And that speaks to kind of wanting to lead people to above code or even more energy efficient opportunities. And so we're trying to work with utilities, and we would certainly want to encourage people. Building to code is great. Can we build even above code and take advantage of utility programs? And can we offer some incentives to encourage people to build more energy efficient? But with all these things, there are construction costs. And so we've worked with Building Codes Division to take a look at what the costs are for getting people just to what they could build at that 2008 residential specialty code in this particular example to building to our 2021 code. And it looks like for a natural gas home, it's a little over $5,000 of a price increase on average. And this is just using a model average home. And for an all electric home, it would be about $6,600. And so with that in mind, we're trying to figure out what are the best ways to incentivize. Can we offer an incentive that would cover the majority, if not all, that cost to help people, encourage them to still build to the current code and help them with that economic recovery and shoulder some of that burden of that added cost. And then we've also taken a look at, can we add a low income incentive to help supplement even more for some of those people struggling to rebuild or might have some insurance gaps or other challenges. So those are all the kind of program approaches we're examining when considering how to build a program. Oh, and so we are curious about whether these numbers match what you're seeing in your area. And we appreciate any thoughts or comments people have. You can put it in the Q&A, or certainly we have that public comment portal. We'd love to hear from people because these are kind of estimates we're getting at a state level, but we'd love to hear at local levels if prices are much higher. We know there's constrained resources and challenges there, but we're also curious about kind of costs of materials and expenses. So I will pause there to see if we do have some comments or questions.
And folks are welcome to do the hand raise thing if you have an answer to this question, and we can take you off mute and call on you too. We do have a relevant question in the chat as well, so I'll go ahead and ask that and see if we get any hands raised. This is from Matt McRae. Thanks, Matt. Do those figures reflect all energy use or just heating energy use?
So these figures are actually just the construction costs. So this is the additional cost to meet the code. And so if you're looking at a natural gas home, so the additional costs might be a more efficient furnace to meet code, or a little bit more insulation of kind of the difference of what the code was. It was actually the 2005 residential specialty code to what it is in 2021. And so what are those additional elements? Maybe it might be additional ventilation requirements or other of those items. And so those additional costs reflect what the additional construction or building practices you might have to incorporate to meet code.
Great. Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Matt, for your gratitude for the clarification. I don't see any other any other hands raised, and then we do have that first Q&A, but it's not an answer to this question, so we'll get to it when the time comes. Oh, it looks like we have something else. We have another question. Sorry, it's with the chat to me, it's a little bit slow. So another question is the cost difference for mobile homes or for site-built questions? Thanks, Esteban for the question.
So what is the cost difference for a standard manufactured home and maybe more energy efficient version?
Clarifying that the cost difference, is there a cost difference for mobile homes? I think this that we're looking at is for stick built or site built homes, right?
These are stick built homes. So a manufactured home, if you're curious about what the cost difference is on average for I guess the standard code level manufactured home or an above code like a NEEM or Energy Star standard, it can vary quite a bit. Obviously, there's a variety of different packages that you can get. But what we've heard, at least the RTF, Regional Technical Forum, uses about $3,000 to $5,000 difference for that more energy efficient home. And certainly it varies by the size, single wide versus double wide. It's going to be more expensive. So if you think of maybe 3,000 or 4,000 at the single wide, and then maybe 5,000 or 6,000 more expensive for a double wide. But obviously those prices may have changed. I mean, those prices were probably from a couple of years ago. And we certainly know within the market, there's challenges, and manufactured homes have certainly gone up. So if you do have any intelligence on that, please share it with us. We'd love to hear it because we want to make sure we understand and have a good understanding of what's going on currently within the market, and make sure we have some incentives or offerings we can offer that reflect that.
Great. Hopefully we answered that question for you, but if not, you can go ahead and raise your hand and come off mute and we can follow up. Oh, another question. Okay. So this is Esteban again. What about materials shortage? Are there any thoughts on how the materials shortage could potentially impact these estimates?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real concern. So we are worried that these estimates might be too conservative. And so we have tried to kind of reach out and figure out just in kind of this forum, and others, and trying to talk to people in the industry and see, obviously resources have been constrained, the price of wood has gone up, but we haven't really seen as much of a price increase in some of the products around energy efficiency, like insulation and things like that. At least that's what we've seen. But please, if you have any intelligence or experience with the prices going up in that, please share it with us, because we're certainly interested in finding out some of that market data.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other questions for now, but we'll keep an eye on that. We're getting ready to get to our Q&A section too. So if we have any more on this, I can answer it with that or ask those questions at that point.
Wonderful, thank you, Christy. Okay, so to just kind of wrap up, so our initial kind of program design, what we're envisioning is helping people rebuild the current code, so distribute funding and try to help with people at that local jurisdiction level, get them just to build the code, work with counties on verification, do what we can for manufactured homes, providing incentives to get more energy efficient manufactured homes, maybe also a heat pump replacement program to help them be more comfortable. Whether somebody who's getting a new home or have a previously owned home, they could be eligible for that. And then getting people to rebuild even above code. How can we create some education and help people build above code and take advantage of utility programs and offer some additional incentives? How can we offset some of those costs to make building, at 10% or 15% above code, so they can realize that long-term affordability? There's a lot of value in taking on that upfront cost, and how can we offset that, because everyone can realize that long-term energy savings off their bill for years to come. But overall, we certainly want to convey that we'd love to get people above code. We'd love them to do super energy efficient things, but the majority of this funding is really going to be dedicated to economic recovery. 92% is going to be just trying to get people to that code level and assist people in manufactured homes. We'll certainly try to allocate funds above code, but we really want to get people rebuilt. And we want these communities to be back and vibrant and good to go. And we want people to be comfortable. And so we're going to do what we can to help with that. And so now, Andy Bolton, if you could talk about DCBS's wildfire hardening program, that'd be wonderful.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. Just want to thank everyone for joining us, and thank you, Department of Energy, for giving me a little bit of time to talk about our program as well. Right before I get started, I just want to point everyone's attention to the website at the bottom of that slide there. That is the webpage that we've stood up for the program. It includes all the public-facing information that's out there right now, as well as a survey that you can use to sort of express interest in participating in the program, and a place to sign up for email updates. And I am also posting it into the chat really quick, just for the ease of copying and pasting. Okay, so much like the Department of Energy, we were also allocated $10 million to do a grant program focused on incentivizing fire hardening improvements for folks that are rebuilding after the 2020 wildfires. So the goal is to, just like I said, come up with grants that can help people bridge the gap in cost for improvements that will increase the resistance of the structure against future wildfire damage. And we're in the process of developing the program right now, but basically our general plan is to have sort of a menu of available options that people can choose from and incorporate into their rebuild things like more fire-resistant roofing and more fire-resistant siding materials that would help the home or business or manufactured home resist fire damage in the future. Like I said, the goal is to incorporate both site-built homes, manufactured homes, and commercial buildings all into the program. So they would all have sort of pathways to eligibility. Those pathways might not be exactly the same, but they're going to be designed to be able to make as many people as possible eligible in each of those categories. It will be a program that will be sort of once the work is completed, the program will come in and there'll be a grant associated with each item. So if you do the more fire resistant roofing or the more fire resistant siding, each of those items will be tied to a specific grant amount that you will then get a check for that grant amount for the associated improvement. One thing that's important to note is that we're definitely planning on being, for lack of a better phrase, backwards compatible. So for folks that have already completed the work on their home, they would still be eligible to participate in this program as long as they've had some of the qualifying improvements done. In terms of the next steps that we're looking forward, we'll be doing, we're planning on partnering with counties, and we're in the process of talking with local counties now. There'll be sort of the the public face of the program will be the local county departments through the sort of utilizing the building department's inspection process that already happens to try and streamline the process and sort of verify that the work's been done as it's been done. We're in process of finalizing agreements with the counties going forward. After that, we'll be going into a rulemaking process to sort of make everything nice and legal. And then we're looking at standing up this program in early 2022. I just want to once again reiterate that website at the bottom of the slide there and post it into the chat. And thanks everyone, and I hope to see you signing up on the survey in there. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Andy. I think we're going to get into now where we actually have some questions for folks in the audience to kind of get the conversation going. And then also we're happy to take questions from you all as we have this sort of back and forth for the rest of our time together. So why don't we start with the first question? And thank you so much, Crystal, for asking. Alan Zelenka from our team's ready to answer, but I'm going to ask the question for everyone on the line. Our community is excited about the finances that have been approved and allocated for some lines being buried in the future. Can we secure a commitment from the Department of Energy to move forward with building back with solar and renewable energy being our default?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So energy supply or energy resources that supply your electricity is really the responsibility of the individual utilities, not Odo or the state of Oregon. So upriver, that means EWEB and Lane Electric Co-op. So on our website, you can go to our website and there's a thing called on the far right, Oregon's electricity mix. And it's on our website and you can look up individual utilities. What it shows is that both Lane and EWEB are almost already there. So EWEB is about 80% renewables, greater than 80% renewables, and Lane Electric, which buys all its power from Bonneville Power Administration, is about 85% renewables. So the difference is a little bit of nuclear power and a little bit of market purchases, which are fossil fuel like coal and natural gas. So the answer is you're almost already there, and we'll probably get there over time. HB 2021 requires 100% electricity for the investor-owned utilities to be 100% renewables by 2040. Doesn't apply directly to EWEB and Lane Electric, but it will affect the market, which will help bring down the carbon footprint of that. So over time, we'll almost get there, but we're almost already there. EWEB and Lane Electric are some of the greenest utilities in the country, as it turns out. And then finally, we have a solar program that allows people to get incentives for. Odo has a program for incentives for solar PV on their rooftops, so people can build back better with their solar projects and get incentives to do that, and also incentives for commercial, and also incentives for maybe doing community centers and things like that. So we can help build back with solar.
Great, thank you. And there's a really related question that was directed to Andy, but I think could go for all of us. Anyway, we can kind of figure out how we want to answer it as we go here. But the question is that it sounds like with the DCBS program, the idea is to mitigate and improve resiliency. Is there any incentive for power generation in terms of resiliency? And maybe Andy, you could answer for you all, and then I think we can also answer for us too on that.
Sure, yeah. Our program is just going to be focused on fire hardening measures for the structure. So things that make the structure more resistant to wildfire damage in the future.
And meanwhile, for us, we have the constraint of energy efficiency for this particular program. And Alan just mentioned that we have other programs that are out there that could lead to that are incentives for power generation. We have the Oregon Solar and Storage Rebate Program, which can fund solar with battery storage, which would make a more resilient power structure for a rebuilt home. And then we also have, as Alan mentioned, the ability with our Community Renewable Energy Grant Program to fund some community projects that would make community spaces or projects that aren't homes, but are more associated with the community to make those more resilient. Same sort of thing. Solar. Well, there's other options, but most people probably do a solar and storage, battery storage kind of thing with that. AKA microgrids. Fun word. All right. Thanks everyone for those questions so far. We're gonna, if it's okay, I don't see any hands raised yet, and I don't see anything new in the Q&A or the chat right now. But what would be great is if we could go through sort of the questions we have for you all, and that you can ask questions too as we go, but let's hear the questions that we have for everyone. And that way, if you don't have any questions, you can help us answer and fill in some of the blanks as we develop the program. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christy. Okay, so I will read through all our questions and then we can just have this open forum and see what kind of answers we get or questions that people have. All right, so question number 1, how can Oregon Department of Energy's program be designed to best support wildfire survivors rebuilding in a way that saves energy and lowers their energy bills? How is energy efficiency being considered by wildfire victims as they seek to rebuild? Are residential and commercial structures being rebuilt to current building codes? Or are people taking advantage of the ability to rebuild to the 2008 building code? Should Oregon Department of Energy consider providing low-income wildfire victims a higher level of incentive to offer greater support for communities struggling to rebuild? If you're currently working towards rebuilding, would you consider building beyond current code to make your home more energy efficient and improve long-term lower energy bills? How can the application process for a program like this be made convenient, easier, and more accessible? How can we best engage survivors to ensure that they know this program is available to them as they rebuild? And what other questions or feedback do you have for us as we develop this program?
So if you want to ask another question, answer one of these, you can just raise your hand. The raise your hand feature is down in the bottom corner, if you remember from Michael sharing how to do that. And then you can also go ahead and chat or go into the Q&A. If you raise your hand, then we can unmute you and you can ask a question or answer a question. And I know Senator Przonski, I can put you on the spot perhaps if you have any thoughts and answers to any of these questions if you'd like.
Thank you for putting me on the spot. I'm actually putting in a chat to everyone. I don't have anything to respond at this point, except I really do think it's really important for these questions to let's give an opportunity for those who are wildfire survivors to be able to actually think about it, contemplate it, and get back both to the Oregon Department of Energy, as well as to either my office or Representative Hayden's office, who also represents the impacted area of the McKenzie Valley Holiday Farm fire. I think the only thing I guess I would say is that knowing that a lot of individuals want to kind of get reestablished in their community, back on their property, that this is an opportunity at the same time when doing that to ensure that they have the best information possible for the type of materials that can in fact help them not only in the sense of energy efficiency, but also to protect the homes in the future if we should unfortunately have another situation that we had back in September of 2020.
Thank you so much, Senator. We really appreciate that. And I'll try to put your email address in the chat for people that are on the line too. Kevin's such a great resource. You are too, of course. But Kevin's who usually gets right back to me. So, but he's such a great resource. I know you said early on the call that he's there to help people. So, and I know he'll do a great job advocating for anyone. So I'll make sure we put that in the chat too. And then I don't know if Crystal wants to come off mute. It looks like Linda might unmute you. But we have a question from Crystal, or a comment just saying that low income options will definitely be well received in the area we're discussing today. So thank you so much for that comment. And then I do see that we have a question from Juan with eWeb. If Linda could take him off mute, please. Thank you.
Take a shot at answering the questions that you have.
Thanks, Juan.
How is energy efficiency being considered by wildfire victims? In us submitting a proposal to work with this effort, we talked to Lane County officials, and what they said is that the buildings that were being built they were not pursuing the allowance of 2008, so they were all going for 2021 energy efficiency code. And then should ODA consider providing low-income wildfire victims? Yes, I think that makes absolute sense. So there's the interest of the homeowner and then the interest of the builder in answering question 4. I think builders tend to like to build how they always build, and to ask them to now maybe learn about rigid insulation on the outside, or maybe even with the new code that is requiring decks inside, that is very challenging for them, and they're trying to come up with new solutions. Because of where these homes are, though, you have ability to put in a ductless heat pump and meet those requirements and not worry about decks inside. But my point on this is that is one thing what the customer may want, be aware or understand as far as energy efficiency goes. And then there's also what the builder may imply or communicate on the benefits of that, because it's just going to add more complexity to the job. Additionally, code currently is pretty good already. So if you want to make some upgrades, there's some envelope upgrades that you can make, but I'm not sure on the cost effectiveness in making those upgrades, the willingness of the builder to do so, and then who's going to enforce that to ensure that it's done properly. Because it's not only meeting, so say you have a different type of insulation that is being applied, or blown in blanket instead of bats, then somebody has to make sure those are done correctly. And I'm not sure if on the code officials, they're going to look for those energy efficiency details to ensure that you're getting the proper installation. It's not just on paper that you did something, but the quality is there as well. So then that potentially can fall, it would be challenging for whoever's a verifier. And if the customer has to hire an outside party to verify that, that is adding costs and perhaps taking away from the incentive. There are utilities that have new construction programs such as eWeb, but unlike in years past, we don't do verification as we used to. So we more rely on certifications that come from standards like Earth Advantage. And I think a lot of utilities are doing that. So the verifier piece, for if you were to suggest or have a program that increases efficiency above code, I think that would be very challenging, both of the financial piece and also the verification. Additionally, BPA is getting rid of some of their new construction incentives. So the heat pump water heater and the HVAC are going away in April of 2022. So then some utilities are not going to have those efficiencies efforts anymore. And so their new construction program will be going away. So that may make it challenging to rely on utilities to push that. And I think that's all the feedback that I have. How can you make the application process? Ideally, if there's a utility that is already doing new construction, that can make it really simple, and they strike a partnership with the local verifiers, Lane County in this case, and then have that process just go through an entity that is so used to doing that. So we have a new construction program. So for us, it wouldn't be challenging to simply add another component to the new construction. And if you meet these requirements, and having the conversation with the county that we had, it seems like it would be pretty smooth on their part and our part. So I think, again, if you have an existing utility that is doing that kind of effort, then that would be really helpful and easy for the customer. And you have also energy experts that can perhaps help educate or navigate those challenges as you're looking, if you choose to go beyond energy, the current energy code. How can you best, and I think that's all the answers that I have that I can think of. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Juan. And Michael, I think you had something to respond to there.
Sure. There's a lot there, Juan. Thank you very much for all your feedback. I certainly agree. I mean, we do certainly consider the code to be advanced and very energy efficient, but there still is opportunity there, and we would love to encourage people, if we can, to take advantage of utility programs. At that code level, we would work with with county or city officials to make sure things were verified and built to code. And above code, you're right. We would have to work with either utilities or local verifiers to make sure if we were incentivizing above code measures that they were taken into account. One of the options there is whether we could incentivize something like the REACH code, which is a code that's above our current required code and something we could promote and encourage people to build to and offer incentives at that level. But also just participating in utility programs, whether it's eWeb, Lane County, or Energy Trust of Oregon. A lot of the utilities have existing programs that we want to certainly encourage people to take advantage of and work with their utility. And certainly we want to, what do I say, supplement or bolster existing systems. Andy Bolton was talking about kind of the advantage of us working together, us working with counties and utilities is we're not interested in creating something brand new or new process or creating any barriers to people as they rebuild. We want to take advantage of existing systems and bolster those as best we can. And so one, that means DCBS and ODO have to work together and make sure we have a unified application and make sure we have a clean process and a really simple menu of options so people understand what they're signing up for, what the incentives are, and make it a really easy process. So we're certainly keeping that in mind, and that's a focus area. But also, how can we use existing system, whether it's existing verifiers, whether it's county officials that can verify the work has been done. And that's why another advantage of, as Andy Bolton was saying, using wildfire hardening through the counties, the county officials can take a look at that. For us, incentivizing people to build the code, we can certainly use county officials to do that. Above code, that's partnerships with local utilities to make sure they can help verify that, and we're bolstering what they're already doing. It's too challenging for us to try to create something brand new and different than what's already offered in the market, and we don't want to confuse people or inundate them with too many options. We're trying to keep it simple and fast and try to get this money out the door.
Great, thanks, Michael. And there's a comment here that I totally agree with, really insightful comments from Juan. Thank you, Michael, for pointing that out, Michael Mortar. And then also another comment from Esteban, just saying this sounds like a good opportunity for education. And I think that gets us to that question number 6. I would love it. I don't see any hands raised right now, or maybe I see Juan's hand raised again. He should be able to take himself off mute if he wants in a sec. But just wanted to say, if anybody has ideas on how best to reach out, we had a similar conversation in Lincoln County, and that actually, we had some robust conversation about how hard it's been to reach people. So if anyone has any thoughts or ideas, that's something that's really on our mind. And I bet a lot of you have had a similar experience with maybe not being able to reach people and how you've had success. So if Juan has another question, hopefully he can get off mute and ask it.
Juan he has been unmuted.
Maybe it was just his hand from before. Great. So does anyone have any thoughts on ways that we can best reach out into this particular area, this set of survivors? And we do have Melanie's hand raised now. She'll be off mute in just a second.
Okay.
And Melanie, you should be able to ask now.
The best.
Oh, sorry.
We can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry. I'm from the community of Blue River, and I lost my home and my business in the Holiday Farm Fire of 2020. So all of the stuff sounds great. The best way to reach out to the people on the Mackenzie is meetings in person. They hate Zoom. Just, and I understand with COVID and all of that other stuff, it's kind of crazy. But they hate Zoom for the most part. And while I've got you, so I don't have to unmute again, a couple other things too. You just need to figure out how to get the money to all of the people, not just certain groups of the people, because we have a bunch of middle class folks who are pretty much falling through all of the cracks because they're not low income enough to qualify for most of the low interest, no interest, everything, or they're and then we've got the higher end that isn't really having to worry about anything, and they can literally build to whatever they want to because they've got $1 million worth of insurance. So that middle group is who's suffering the most right now, at least in my experience with most of our people on the Mackenzie River. And then that's it. So,
Great.
I didn't mean to add more than I needed to.
Oh no, I could talk to you all day, Melanie. Thank you so much for being willing to be here and share your experience. And we'll make sure that we keep that in mind, that there's that group that's sort of in the middle here, and then also getting ourselves out onto the river and to meet with folks there.
Oh, hi, this is Juan again. So on the outreach, we identified over close 130 or 132 within our service territory that would qualify for something like this. So I think the best way to engage with, one way at least, is to work with utilities, because they would know their customers, and then we can directly communicate with them either via email or phone call to let them know about this effort and program. So that would be one opportunity. As far as the comment was being made earlier on the verifier, I used to be a verifier for new construction, and it was challenging because builders, I think for the county, it would be difficult to verify the quality because the builders can often, you show up and they didn't do what they're supposed to do. And so it's something that you have to work with them from the beginning, several visits to ensure they understand the proper installation. And then you get there and it's not that quite right, so you have to come back. And I think unless you have an outside verifier that is trained in doing that, it will be difficult to ensure the quality of installation if you're going above. And so that would be my own feedback. It was always, especially with new builders, is one thing if you have somebody who's built like this, like there are 5 homes into it, so you don't have to do anything. But when it's a new builder and they just want to get their work done so they can go home, the builder may care, but the installation contractor may not. And so they are there to insulate and they want to go to the next home, and you're kind of slowing their work down. And depending if it's a county verifier, they may not be able to go right when the contractor is there doing their work. So the opportunity for education is gone. And it comes afterwards, and you sometimes have to hold the project. What I'm saying is the verification can be challenging on both the verifier, the builder, and it can be complex, and you need to bring them along from the beginning. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Juan. We really appreciate the insights again.
And may I respond to that, Juan? I think that's great insight. I think that speaks to the need for us to do a lot of work within the building community and do a lot of outreach early on in the process and make sure we're talking to the builders and the designers. I think you're certainly right. If you're waiting till the verification stage to educate, or if you're waiting till people already have their plans drawn and showing up to the building department, that's going to be really challenging, and it might be too late. We've got to try to get people early on, put the work in and educating people. You're right, working with utilities, working with county staff. What kind of outreach can we do early in the process to start talking to the building community and the design community and make sure they all know what we're requiring, what's available for incentives, and how we can help people. Unfortunately, a lot has been already rebuilt, and so we certainly want to offer a program that can help people who have already been rebuilt, as Andy Bolton was pointing out. So we are going to be backwards looking as well. But for forward looking, for people who are still building, we're going to try to work with that design and build community so that we can try to help as much as we can on that front end, because you certainly pointed out the challenges of trying to do it at the verification process at the end.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to just point out a couple of things that have been popping up in the chat. If Odo has a brochure handout, happy to share that with customers. That's Marianne Nolte. Thank you so much. And she'll also be sure the disaster case managers upriver, or she's sure the disaster case managers upriver would be happy to do the same. When the time comes and we're ready to share out information on the program to help people connect, we'll make sure that we reach out to you, Marianne. When you signed up today, we got your email address and we'll follow up. So thank you. Michael giving major kudos to Melanie Stanley, says she's about as embedded in the community as you will find, and keeping her advice front and center is critical. So we'll make sure we are listening and reach out if we have other questions for her. And then Nelda Engstrom wrote and said, what about adding extra incentives for energy efficient appliances and on-demand water heaters? And I'll just say, as we answer this question, we're right at time. So if we see any other ones, I'm sure there's a couple of us that can stay on, but just totally understand if people need to go, and we can share the portal. I'll share the portal once Michael starts answering that question that I just asked. So if you need to go, but you want to come back and answer some of these questions, I'll get that in the chat so that you can do that.
Yes, so thank you for that question. So we have taken a look at creating a menu of options or a variety of different ways to incentivize individual measures. Our thought was just at the above code level, it would be simplest just to try to encourage people to get to that, either a reach code or participate in a new homes program through a utility. But we certainly welcome that feedback. So if you do have thoughts on whether you think it should be water heaters or appliances or whatever option, please send us that, and it's in the chat certainly now, and we can take a look at it. But if you have any other thoughts around that, it's still on the table and something we would consider. The reason we would consider just incentivizing people at that new home level is because we kind of want to remain agnostic on which appliances or which products people choose. We just want to set kind of a goal level and say, if you're that efficient, we're going to give you an incentive, rather than, and try to simplify it rather than create a bunch of individual menu of options. But if that isn't as simple as we think it is, we certainly appreciate that feedback or ideas people have. And so, Christy, you did mention time. So if you don't mind, I will go to some of our kind of wrap-up slides next. And so, we've talked about our program. We do have a program page, and we certainly can put this in the chat so everyone can see it and click on it. We actually have administrative rules where we have our rulemaking page where we have a variety of these meetings and where we're going to be. This meeting is recorded, and we will certainly put the recordings on our website if people want to refer back to them or recommend a community member take a look at them. You can certainly email our program directly. We will see those and respond to them. Please send us any of your information. And we've got BCBS's wildfire hardening program. I know Andy already put that in the chat, which is great. So hopefully everyone has access to that. And just to wrap up kind of our timeline. So right now we're having all these community meetings, which is great. And then we're going to start our rulemaking process. So our last meeting of this group in November will be kind of here's what we've heard, and here's some kind of our draft rules and our initial plans based on that. And then we'll go through a rulemaking process to formalize that. And then we'd love to be able to implement our program, be able to start actually sending out checks as early as February of 2022. And we talked about it earlier, so we'll bring it up one last time. We do have a portal where we can receive lots of comments. People can upload documents or leave different questions or thoughts. We've got a variety of different questions in there that we've already mentioned this in this presentation, as well as some additional ones. We'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts. And overall, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. And we know you're busy. We know that it's challenging to make these kinds of meetings, but we really do appreciate the opportunity to listen to you and hear from you.
Great, thank you so much. We did get one more comment other than just me throwing the portal link into the chat for people to just be able to click on. Matt Letter, another person from eWeb, shared that better than code windows, even triple pane might be an easy to verify improvement to incentivize. So I will leave that for Michael to soak in to his program design work. And then I do see Melanie's hand up again. And since we are going to center Melanie as promised, we'd love to have you come back. So if Linda can unmute Melanie, that'd be great. We'd love to give her the last word. And Melanie, you should be able to talk now once you're unmuted.
Can you guys hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Michael Mortar, for all of the praise. Hopefully I live up to it. So my biggest thing, and it's just from like listening to all the outline conversations. So part of the verification piece, in case you're not aware, it takes us almost 3 weeks to get just one like code person up to Blue River to do any of the verifications for any of our regular stuff that we're having done right now. So like we had a guy, sorry, I'll try not to be too wordy. We had one guy, he had to have like 14 inspections done in one day because, like there's an inspection for each thing. And so they tried to get them all scheduled at the same time so that he didn't have to try and be there for the inspector every 3 days. And we only have like 2 or 3 inspectors that will come up that are sent up river, and they only come up on like 2 days a week. So if the only way to provide some of this incentive stuff is by absolute verification by somebody who's a county employee or whatever else, you are going to slow down people's build time because that's going to be one more thing they have to verify. And people aren't going to sign up for it because they're already, some people are 7 months into a permit process and still don't have a permit to put up on a stake to put outside a home to start a building. So telling them one more thing of, hey, you need to verify it is going to be useless. So, I mean, there's just.
So Melanie, would it work to do some kind of visual verification or try to figure out if there's some kind of alternative verification options?
I think
above code. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that if there was some way that like, because I know that we've talked about it with like the county folks, with the land planning and all of those guys a couple of times over, because of all of the challenges, I'll say that we've had. Some way of doing like whether it's like an email system or like a pictures of what got installed or I mean I know that in some ways that's going to be almost impossible or not actually up to par as far as what you guys may need to see in order to have that verification, but for some people that may be the quickest way. And if it's just something as easy as a hey we put in this really super energy efficient water heater or any of that other stuff, if there's some way to kind of streamline that process, that would make more sense.
Great. Really good food for thought. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and that of your neighbors. It just really means a lot that you're here and willing to help us understand what it's like.
No, thank you for letting me talk. And if anybody, honestly, if you want to, you can email me anytime.
Great. We'll find you. We'll track you down. And then again, a couple of us are happy to stay on. If people need to go, please do. It looks like we have one more question. Is that okay, Michael? Are you okay with that? Okay. We have Esteban, who's been a friend in our chat, who has a question now. You should be able to speak now.
Thank you. Can you all hear me there?
We can, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to what Melanie was saying, and I'm wondering, is there any way to like proxy these inspections? I work at Homes for Good. Actually, I work with a weatherization department there, so I'm wondering, there's already some like QZI in there. There's already inspectors, not only for us. I imagine that also eWeb, and other utilities have them as well. So is there a way to proxy this so that it'll make their life easier? Because I can sympathize and empathize with what Melanie was explaining.
Sure. And so we could certainly talk to the counties about that, but I certainly, we wouldn't be able to, want to say, go around or do something different than the county process on building code. So we certainly defer to them, certainly within their jurisdiction and make sure we're following their rules. And so we would certainly defer to them. We can certainly offer ideas and talk through counties and see about their services and see how we can complement what they're doing. But we would ultimately, I want to make it very clear that we would defer to those local jurisdictions and their existing rules, and we certainly need to comply with with their code officials and how they're looking at things. But that's certainly a concern and something we can bring up with them. Do we have any Lane County officials on the line?
Well, and just to be clear, the typical process of getting an energy inspection, so whether or not you met the energy code, is part of what the county does on a regular basis. So it's not, I wouldn't really consider it additional. It's still in that process of getting your permits and getting your inspections done, but it's something they do on a regular process for every single home in the county when it gets built.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. And then last question real quick. If any of these funds come in, say, for low-income people, can they be mixed with any other funds that are available through DOE, through BPA, through different grants and things? Is there going to be rules about how this different rebates or refunds can be mixed and match?
That's a great question. And we aren't going to put restrictions on that. We do consider this both helping people rebuild energy efficiently, but economic recovery. And so we do want to help people as best we can. We recognize there's shortages in insurance coverage and a variety of other things. And if people can take advantage of a variety of resources, we certainly want them to take advantage of DCBS's wildfire hardening program, our program, utility programs. If they're already receiving FEMA assistance, stuff from Housing and Community Services, even better. We want to make sure people are taking advantage of all those programs, and we want them to be able to complement each other. So if you do see opportunities for us to adjust our program in some way to make sure it's more complementary of those programs, please point that out to us. Please let us know.
Yeah, one of the things we've been looking for is how do we make it really easy for people to prove that they're low to moderate income? So if you've seen programs that work really well in that regard, please let us know. Or if you have any comments right now, that'd be great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, one thing that comes to mind is people who already apply for like energy assistance and they already have to verify it through them. So that's one quick one that comes to the top of my head.
Right. Yeah. Another product like food stamps and other things, easy verification. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the moderate part of the income that's a little more difficult.
Yeah, we've had to do a lot of work on it for the Oregon Solar and Storage Rebate Program, and we have something that works, but it's tough to administer and feels still like we haven't quite found the perfect thing. So if anyone has any other ideas and wants to follow up with us, we'd love to hear it. Great. Well, I don't see anything else in the chat. We're really grateful for everyone's feedback. And I think on that note, Michael, I'll hand it off to you to adjourn us if you're feeling ready.
Thank you, Christy. Well, I think that's everything. And please take advantage of our portal or come to one of our other subsequent meetings. We'd love to see you again. Thank you for taking the time, and we really appreciate it. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.